The sky above Illustra burned with fire. Ships streaked across the clouds, leaving trails of smoke and plasma in their wake. Explosions shook the ground below as the Vorathion swarm, the galaxy's most ruthless machine army, descended on the border world. Among the chaos, the human strike team moved carefully, their boots crunching on the cracked metal of the ruined city. Lieutenant Marcus Hale crouched behind a broken wall, scanning the battlefield. He was a tall man with sharp green eyes that missed nothing. His armor was scratched, scorched, and dented from the relentless attacks, but he did not care. Survival was his only goal right now. Move left. Watch the flank, a voice shouted over the radio. Marcus ducked as a Vorathion drone zipped past, firing energy pulses. He returned fire with his rifle, aiming carefully. His shots were precise, taking down 2 drones before the rest turned and disappeared into the smoke. Suddenly, a massive explosion shook the area. Marcus stumbled but caught himself. He looked around and realized the transport carrying the rest of his team had been hit. Smoke and flames rose where it had crashed, and screams echoed in the distance. He clenched his teeth. The team, his friends, were gone. He had no choice. He needed to move. Pushing through the wreckage, he spotted something unusual among the debris. A small escape pod that had crash-landed nearby. Its hull was cracked and smoke poured from its engine. Curiosity and instinct pushed him forward. The hatch was slightly open. Marcus approached cautiously, weapon ready. Inside, he saw her. The alien was unlike anything he had seen. Her skin shimmered like polished metal under the smoke-filled sunlight, a soft gold that caught the light. Her eyes were large and violet, wide with pain and fear. And her blood, glowing faintly, stained the floor of the pod. Princess Serenia of the Elestran Empire. Marcus recognized her from Coalition briefings. She was young, maybe 19 by human standards, and had been groomed to lead her people in this war. And now she was dying. Marcus's heart pounded. I need to help her, he muttered to himself. He stepped closer and carefully reached for her. At first she recoiled, her violet eyes narrowing. "Stay back, human," she whispered, her voice trembling but strong. "I can save you," Marcus said calmly, lowering his weapon. "Just let me help." Serenia's gaze froze on his. She was stunned. She had been trained to avoid humans, to distrust their ways. Humans were unpredictable, reckless, dangerous. And yet, here he was, standing before her, offering life instead of death. With no time to hesitate, Marcus began treating her wound with the limited supplies he had. He tore strips of fabric from his uniform to make bandages and used his small field med kit to clean the injury. Serenia winced but stayed still, watching him closely. "Your method? It's crude," she said finally, her voice tight with pain and disbelief. "I'll take crude over dead," Marcus replied with a small, confident smile. The princess's eyes softened slightly. She had never seen anyone fight so hard just to help another. Most Illustrans believed humans acted only for themselves, for glory or survival. Marcus was proving them wrong. As he worked, Marcus heard the low hum of Vorathion drones approaching. "The pod wasn't safe. We need to move. Now," he said urgently. Serenia nodded, though her face was pale and weak. He lifted her carefully, her arms weak around his neck. Moving through the smoke and rubble, Marcus ducked under falling debris and ran across the ruined city. The drones were closing in, their sensors picking up movement. Every second counted. Somewhere in the distance, a coalition signal beacon flickered, trying to warn survivors of the swarm. Marcus gritted his teeth. He had to get Serenia to it. During the run, Serenia spoke softly, barely audible over the explosions. "Humans, you are not what I expected." Marcus glanced at her. "I'm not sure what you expected." "I expected fear, chaos, selfishness," she admitted, her voice weak but honest. "And yet, you fight not for glory, but to save a life." "My life?" Marcus's jaw tightened.
Saving lives is what makes us worth something. For a moment, the two shared silence.
The battlefield raged around them, but in that moment, they were only 2 individuals, 1 human, 1 alien bound by survival and an unspoken understanding. They reached the edge of the city, where the terrain opened into rocky plains. Marcus looked up. In the sky, the faint blue glow of a coalition ship appeared. Hope. But it was still far away, and the drones were closing fast. Marcus set Serenia down behind a large boulder, scanning for the safest route to the signal beacon. The drones were precise, relentless, and unfeeling, machines built for destruction. But Marcus had something they did not: instinct, creativity, and courage. "Stay behind me," he ordered. "I'll get us there." The princess nodded, though her hands shook. Marcus moved like a shadow, dodging patrols, using the ruined buildings as cover and silently taking out any drones that strayed too close. Every step was dangerous, but Marcus pressed on, driven by a will that refused to let her die. Hours seemed to pass. Every sound, a distant explosion, the hum of a drone, the crack of collapsing metal, made Serenia flinch. And yet she could not take her eyes off Marcus. He was relentless, moving with precision and calm, even when death hovered close. She had never seen a human like him. He was not just strong. He was focused, brave, and unyielding. Finally, they reached a ridge overlooking the plains. The coalition beacon glowed faintly, signaling that rescue was near. Marcus helped Serenia stand, supporting her as she walked beside him. For the first time since the crash, she allowed herself a flicker of hope. Then, without warning, a massive Vorathion patrol appeared below the ridge. Dozens of drones scanned the area, moving in coordinated formation. Marcus froze for a heartbeat, calculating. Retreat was risky. Attacking head-on was suicidal. He knelt beside Serenia. "I need you to trust me," he said firmly. "I do," she replied quietly, her voice barely audible. Marcus glanced at the drones. He saw the terrain, the shadows, and an opportunity. Using the rocks and their small size as cover, he would lead them in a zigzag path, breaking the drone's line of sight. Then when they were close enough, he could signal for the coalition ship to provide extraction. "Stay close," he whispered. "Don't look down, don't stop moving." Serenia nodded, gripping his arm as he guided her down the ridge. Each step was tense. A wrong move and they would die. The drones fired sporadic pulses of energy, lighting up the plain with deadly precision. Marcus dodged and rolled, pulling Serenia behind boulders, using every trick he had learned in countless battles. At last, they reached a narrow valley. Marcus signaled upward with a small flare. Moments later, a human coalition dropship descended, guns blazing, drawing the attention of the drones. It was their chance. Marcus lifted Serenia, sprinted to the extraction point, and leapt aboard the ship. The ramp closed behind them, the engines roared, and they rose above the battlefield. Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe. Serenia, still weak, looked at him with eyes that no longer held fear but something else, respect and awe. You saved me," she whispered. Marcus smiled, wiping blood and sweat from his brow. "No, we saved each other," he replied. And as the ship carried them away from the war-torn world, a bond had already formed, one that would challenge empires, test courage, and show the galaxy why humans were truly called warborn. The dropship hummed as it rose into the sky, leaving the burning plains of Illustra far below. Inside the cabin, Marcus Hale lowered Princess Serenia gently onto a padded bench. Her breathing was shallow, each exhale a struggle, and her violet eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. "Hold still," Marcus said, checking her bandages. He pressed gently on the wound to see if the bleeding had slowed. "You're safe now. The ship's shields will protect you until we reach the medical bay." Serenia tried to pull away but winced at the pressure. I am not used to being touched," she whispered, her voice fragile but edged with quiet authority. "Your species?" "You are reckless," Marcus looked up, meeting her gaze. "Reckless, maybe. But I don't leave people behind," he said calmly. "Not anyone I can help." She studied him, her expression unreadable. Illustrans were taught to avoid humans. They were unpredictable, wild, and sometimes dangerous. And yet here was one, calm, confident, and careful, treating her with skill and care. She did not fully understand it, but she felt safe. "Your method? Crude," she admitted after a moment, her voice still trembling. "But effective." Marcus shrugged. "Crude works better than nothing." He tore a strip of clean cloth from his uniform to reinforce the bandage. "I'm not perfect. I don't have your advanced tech, but I know how to keep someone alive." Serenia's gaze softened. For the first time since the crash, she allowed herself to trust him. It was strange, and part of her resisted it. Illustrans valued control, discipline, and protocol. Trusting a human went against everything she had been taught. But the instinct to survive was stronger than pride. The ship's intercom crackled, interrupting their fragile silence. "Lieutenant Hale, we're approaching the Coalition forward base. Prepare for landing," the voice announced. Marcus nodded, tightening the straps on Serenia's bandages. "We'll get you medical attention soon. Just hang on." As the ship descended through Illustra's thin atmosphere, Marcus studied the landscape below. The world had been scorched by Vorathion attacks. Entire cities lay in ruins, smoke rising like black clouds. But among the devastation, pockets of life remained, small colonies that still resisted Sol. The first light of Illustra's twin suns spilled over the horizon, casting long shadows across the Coalition forward base. The city below was still in ruins, smoke rising from burned-out buildings and scattered debris. Marcus Hale stood near the edge of the landing pad, checking his weapons. His rifle was loaded, his knives secured, and his instincts sharp. Today would be another dangerous day. Princess Serenia emerged from the medical bay, her movements slow but steady. The treatments had stabilized her wound, but she was still weak. She leaned on a cane the medical team had provided, her violet eyes scanning the horizon with cautious determination. "You should rest," Marcus said. "You're still healing. We can wait for reinforcements." Serenia shook her head. "I cannot remain here. Vorathion scouts are still near the perimeter, and my people are regrouping. I must move. The Coalition cannot afford to lose me again." Marcus studied her. The princess was stubborn, proud, and brave, traits he respected, but they also made her a target. "Fine, but you follow my lead," he said firmly. "One wrong step and they'll kill you." She nodded, understanding the unspoken warning. They would leave the base at first light, moving on foot across rough terrain to a safe rendezvous point where Coalition forces would pick them up. It was dangerous, but Marcus had a plan. By mid-morning, they were ready. Marcus adjusted Serenia's pack and secured her sidearm in a holster. "Keep close," he said, gesturing toward the rocky landscape ahead. "We move fast and we stay low. Vorathions may still patrol these lands." The journey began cautiously. The plains were vast and unforgiving. Craggy outcroppings and shallow ravines offered some cover, but the open spaces were deadly. Vorathion drones could detect movement from miles away, and any exposure could be fatal. Serenia leaned on Marcus, not just for physical support, but also for reassurance. Every so often she glanced at him, impressed by his calm demeanor. Humans, she realized, did not rely solely on technology or strategy. They used instinct, adaptability, and courage, qualities that Illustrans valued but rarely practiced outside strict training. Hours passed. They moved in silence, except for the occasional whispers about terrain or signs of enemy patrols. Marcus led them through narrow canyons, using the shadows to hide their movements. He climbed rocks and scouted ahead, mapping the safest paths with precision and care. Serenia followed, learning how humans relied on intuition as much as planning. As they paused for a short rest, Serenia finally spoke. "You move differently than my people. You improvise. You adapt. You do not wait for orders. It is—" She searched for the word. "Remarkable," Marcus chuckled softly. "We survive. That's all it is. You see a problem, you solve it. You don't wait for someone else to tell you what to do." Serenia studied him closely. "And yet you act not just for yourself, but for others. I do not understand why humans risk so much for strangers." Marcus looked at her, thoughtful. "Because sometimes saving someone else saves more than one life. It can save hope, it can change the future. Today, saving you could save entire worlds." Her eyes widened. She had been trained to think in terms of strategy and protocol, not instinct and courage. But now she began to understand. Humans were unpredictable, but that unpredictability was also their greatest strength. The journey became more treacherous as they moved closer to the Vorathion-controlled zone. Drones appeared on the horizon, their metallic bodies glinting in the sunlight. Marcus signaled Serenia to stay low. He studied the patrol pattern carefully. The drones moved in straight lines, scanning for heat signatures and motion. "Follow me exactly," he whispered. "One wrong move and they'll see us." He led them through a narrow canyon, ducking behind rocks and waiting for the drones to pass. Each pulse of energy from the Vorathion scanners sent tension through the air. Serenia's hands were sweaty, her pulse racing, but she trusted Marcus completely. His confidence and experience were contagious. Suddenly, a drone veered closer than expected. Marcus grabbed Serenia, pulling her behind a boulder just in time. The machine's sensors swept past, missing them by inches. They stayed silent, barely breathing until the danger passed. "You saved me again," Serenia whispered, awe in her voice. Marcus smiled faintly. "We save each other. That's how we survive." The sun climbed higher, turning the landscape into a harsh, glaring expanse. Water was scarce, and the heat made movement exhausting. They found a small cave to rest, hidden from view. Marcus cleaned the wound again, ensuring it was secure. Serenia watched him, silently appreciating the care and skill he applied. "You do not hesitate even when the odds are against you," she said softly. "It is admirable." Marcus shrugged. "We have to be. Hesitation gets people killed." Hours later, as they resumed their journey, a distant explosion shook the valley. Vorathion patrols had found survivors, and the sound was a warning. Marcus knew they had to move faster. He scanned the terrain ahead and spotted a ridge that would give them better visibility. "Up there," he said, pointing. "We can see if the path ahead is clear." The climb was exhausting. Marcus helped Serenia over rocks and loose stones, his strength steady and reassuring. Every step was a test of endurance, but they persevered. At the top of the ridge, they paused, catching their breath and scanning the horizon. Below them, Vorathion drones moved in patterns that suggested a search. Marcus studied them carefully. "We wait for the right moment," he whispered. "Then we move fast, straight to the rendezvous point." "No mistakes." Serenia nodded, her respect for the human warrior growing. She had expected fear and chaos, but Marcus had remained calm, strategic, and fearless. Humans, she realized, were not just survivors. They were born to face impossible odds and often win. Night fell, bringing cooler air and darkness that offered better cover. Marcus led them down the ridge and into a shallow valley, where rocks and shadows hid their movements. The drones had returned to their patrol stations and the immediate danger seemed lessened, but the journey was far from over. Marcus knew that Vorathions were relentless and any moment could bring another threat. Still, he pressed on, driven by a will that refused to fail. Serenia followed, learning from his every move. As they paused near a small stream to drink, Serenia spoke quietly. "Your people. They are truly something different. I understand now why the Coalition calls you Warborn. You fight not just for yourself, but for life itself." Marcus smiled faintly. "We survive, and we help others survive when we can. That's what being human is all about." The two of them moved through the night, shadows against the rocky landscape, determined and united. The bond between them was growing, fragile but undeniable. Trust had formed in the heat of battle and the peril of survival. By dawn, they reached the edge of the valley. The rendezvous point was close, a small outpost where Coalition forces could extract them safely. Marcus looked at Serenia. "Almost there. Stay close, stay quiet." She nodded, her violet eyes reflecting both exhaustion and determination. Together, they stepped forward into the uncertain light of dawn, two unlikely allies bound by survival, courage, and the unshakable strength of humanity. And as the first rays of sunlight touched the ruins of Illustra below, Marcus and Serenia knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was dangerous, the war far from over, but together, they had the power to survive, inspire, and fight back against impossible odds. The Coalition outpost lay on the edge of a jagged plateau, a small cluster of buildings reinforced with metal and energy shields. Marcus Hale and Princess Serenia arrived just before dusk, their bodies exhausted from the long trek across Illustra's hostile terrain. Marcus helped Serenia down from a rocky ridge, supporting her with careful hands. "Here we are," he said, scanning the surroundings. "This is our extraction point. You'll be safe here until reinforcements arrive." Serenia nodded, her violet eyes still bright with a mixture of fatigue and resolve. "Safer for now," she said softly. "But the galaxy is not safe. Vorathion patrols are relentless. And my people, they may not understand what you have done for me." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "Illustrans are proud and cautious. They follow strict protocol. Touching a royal even to save her life is forbidden in some eyes. Some may see your actions as reckless or disrespectful." Marcus shrugged. "If saving someone is disrespect, I'll take the blame." They approached the outpost gates where Illustran soldiers waited. The soldiers were tense, their weapons at the ready, but curiosity and concern mixed in their eyes. Some whispered to each other as Marcus carried Serenia to the medical bay. Inside, the princess was settled on a bed, and the medical staff checked her bandages and administered nutrient boosters. Marcus waited outside, arms crossed, listening to the hushed murmurs of Illustran officers. Finally, an officer approached him. "Lieutenant Hale," he said stiffly, "the princess is grateful for your assistance. But there are concerns. Protocol must be followed. Humans are unpredictable. Marcus's jaw tightened. I saved her life. That's what matters, the officer hesitated. Yes, but there are rules. Some may call it dishonor, even treachery. Serenia, hearing the conversation, intervened. She pushed herself upright, leaning on the bed rail. Her voice was strong, commanding attention. Enough! Lieutenant Hale is not dishonorable. He saved me when no one else could. If you call this treachery, you fail to understand courage and duty. The soldiers froze, exchanging an. The morning sun rose over the coalition outpost, casting long shadows across the scarred terrain. Marcus Hale tightened the straps on his armor, checking his rifle and equipment one last time. The previous night's battle had been hard, but the Varatheon swarm had not stopped. Another attack was inevitable, and Marcus knew they had to act before the drones could reorganize. Princess Serenia stepped out of the medical tent, her body still recovering but her spirit strong. Her violet eyes scanned the battlefield and she placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Are you ready? She asked quietly. Marcus nodded. We have no choice. The Varathions are relentless, but we have an advantage. They think we are weak because we are small in number. We will prove them wrong. Serena studied him for a moment. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but Marcus had a clarity she could respect. He did not hesitate, he did not panic, and he always acted with purpose. The Illystran soldiers around them were still cautious, but her faith in Marcus was growing. Today, Marcus began, addressing the coalition troops. We show the Varathions that we do not surrender. We are small, but we are strong. We are humans, and we are warborn. The soldiers, both human and Illystran, looked at him in surprise. His words carried a weight they had not expected. Courage, confidence, and clear thinking inspired them. Slowly, nods of agreement spread through the ranks. Marcus had a way of turning fear into determination. The plan was simple but dangerous. They would lead the Varathion drones into a narrow canyon, where Marcus had set up traps and ambush points. The machines were powerful, but they lacked creativity. Humans, however, could adapt. As the soldiers moved into position, Marcus and Serenia scouted ahead. The landscape was rough and unforgiving, with jagged rocks and deep chasms. Every step required careful planning. The drones patrolled in predictable patterns, but Marcus knew how to use their predictability against them. Stay close, he whispered to Serenia. Don't look back. Watch my lead, she nodded, following his every move. Her confidence in humans and in Marcus had grown with each encounter. She had seen him fight, protect, and inspire. Illystrans were trained for battle, yes, but humans like Marcus had a spark they did not teach in academies. When they reached the canyon, Marcus signaled the soldiers into position. He checked the traps, rock slides, energy charges, and concealed snipers. Each trap was placed with precision, designed to slow the drones and create chaos in their ranks. The first wave of Varathion drones appeared on the horizon, their metallic forms glinting in the sun. They moved in perfect coordination, scanning for heat and movement. Marcus took a deep breath. Now, he whispered. The ambush began. Rocks fell, energy pulses fired, and the drones were forced to scatter. Marcus moved with fluid precision, taking down drones that strayed too close while coordinating the coalition troops. Illystrans and humans fought side by side, their tactics complementing each other. Serena fired with accuracy, her training and Marcus's guidance allowing her to strike key targets. For the first time, she understood the power of improvisation. Humans did not wait for perfect conditions. They acted, adapted, and turned every opportunity into an advantage. The drones regrouped, more numerous and aggressive. Marcus did not panic. He signaled a retreat to a secondary ambush point, leading the machines into another trap. Explosions shook the canyon and drones were destroyed in waves. Coalition soldiers followed his lead, moving with precision and confidence. Hours passed in a relentless battle of strategy, courage, and endurance. Marcus's leadership inspired the troops. Humans and Illystrans alike began to call him Warborn, recognizing the unique combination of bravery, skill, and determination he represented. Serena watched him, awe in her eyes. Your people. You are extraordinary, not just in battle but in spirit, she whispered. I have never seen anyone like you. Marcus glanced at her, smiling faintly. We survive, and sometimes we inspire others to survive too. That is what being human is about. The tide of battle began to turn. Varathion drones, despite their power, were no match for human ingenuity and coordinated strategy. Marcus had taught the coalition forces to fight differently, to adapt, to anticipate, and to trust each other. By sunset, the canyon was littered with destroyed drones. The coalition had won, but the victory came at a cost. Soldiers were exhausted, wounded, and weary. Marcus checked on each of them, ensuring they were safe. Serena assisted where she could, her presence a symbol of leadership and unity. As the dust settled, Marcus looked at the horizon. The Vorathions would regroup, of course. The war was far from over. But today, humans had proven that they were not just survivors. They were leaders, innovators, and fighters who could stand against impossible odds. Serena approached him, her eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "You have shown my people something they have never seen," she said. "Courage, hope, and the will to act when all seems lost. Humans, you are truly warborn." Marcus shrugged. "We just do what we must. We survive and we help others survive when we can." She studied him for a long moment, admiration and respect in her gaze. "I will carry this lesson back to my people. The galaxy underestimates humans at its peril. You are more than they imagine." Marcus nodded. "Then let's make sure they never forget it." The coalition set up temporary defenses for the night. Fires burned and soldiers shared food and water, their morale lifted by the day's victory. Marcus walked among them, offering advice, encouragement, and reassurance. He did not boast, did not seek praise. He simply led by example, and the troops followed. Serena, seated on a rock near the edge of the plateau, watched Marcus interact with the soldiers. She realized that leadership was more than rank or authority. It was action, courage, and the ability to inspire others. Marcus had all of these in abundance. That night, as the twin moons of Illustra rose, Marcus and Serena sat together quietly. The sounds of the outpost, fire crackling, soldiers talking softly, and distant alarms filled the air. "You fight differently than anyone I have known," Serena said softly. "Your courage is remarkable. Your people, they are more than survivors. They are heroes." Marcus smiled faintly. "We do what we have to, and sometimes that's enough to change the course of a battle, or a life." Serena looked at him, the glow of the moon reflecting in her eyes. She had learned a valuable lesson about humans. Their strength was not just in weapons or numbers, but in spirit, ingenuity, and the will to face impossible odds. And Marcus Hale, human soldier and warborn, had shown her all of these in one day. As they prepared for the next phase of the war, the galaxy seemed a little less dark. Hope, courage, and the warborn spirit burned brightly, lighting the way for humans and allies alike. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of scorched earth from previous battles. Marcus Hale stood at the edge of the coalition outpost, surveying the horizon. Illustra's twin suns rose slowly, casting long shadows over the rocky plains and battered cities. The Vorathion swarm was still out there, relentless and powerful, but Marcus did not waver. Princess Serenia joined him, walking steadily with a cane, though her strength had returned remarkably fast. Her violet eyes scanned the landscape, calculating risks and possibilities. She had learned much from Marcus: human resilience, courage, and the ability to act decisively when circumstances demanded it. "The Vorathions won't give up easily," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Their next attack will be stronger." Marcus nodded, adjusting his rifle. "Then we have to be ready. But we're not just defending. We're showing them what humans can do. Illustrans, too. Together we're stronger than they think." Serena looked at him, a new respect and admiration in her gaze. She had doubted humans once, expecting recklessness and chaos. Instead, she had found ingenuity, courage, and an unshakable will to survive. Humans were not just survivors, they were warborn. The coalition forces gathered, preparing for a preemptive strike. Marcus addressed them, his tone calm but commanding. "We cannot wait for the Vorathions to come to us. They are strong, yes, but they are predictable. We have speed, creativity, and courage. That is our advantage. Today we show the galaxy what humans and their allies can do." The soldiers listened, inspired. Marcus's presence alone brought confidence. Illustrans and humans alike had seen his leadership and ingenuity on the battlefield, and they trusted him. They knew he would act decisively and keep them alive. Serena stepped forward. "Lieutenant Hale is not just a human soldier. He is our ally, our guide. and are proof that courage can overcome even the greatest odds. Follow him and we will survive together." The coalition troops nodded, their morale strengthened. Marcus and Serenia led the forces out of the outpost, moving cautiously toward a narrow canyon that overlooked the Varatheon staging grounds. Marcus had studied the terrain carefully, planning traps and ambushes. "Stay close to me," he whispered to Serenia. "We move as one. One wrong step and it could be fatal." She followed him, watching as humans and Illistrans coordinated silently. Marcus had taught them to anticipate, improvise, and trust each other's instincts. The Varatheons were machines, precise and deadly, but they lacked imagination. Humans and Illistrans could exploit that weakness. As they reached the canyon, Marcus signaled the troops to hold positions. They waited, patient and silent, while the Varatheon forces advanced below. Drones and mechanical walkers moved in formation, unaware of Ti.